as the organization adheres to achieve its vision and goal. Lord, our Heavenly Father, we pray on every technical requirements that will be needed for today. We pray that there will be a swift delivery and there will be no delay on any program in the mighty name of Jesus. We pray, Lord, our Heavenly Father, that all that we deliberate on today and for the time duration that we are going to deliberate on this meeting, Lord, our Heavenly Father, will be beneficial for every one of us and all the members of the organization. This we ask in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Dr. Choma, for the prayer. We kindly move to our safety briefing. We would like to oblige Dr. Rita Orajaka, who is the Assistant General Secretary of the Owerri chapter, to give us our safety briefing. They will now start. Dr. Rita, please.
Okay, good evening, good morning, everyone. Welcome to NAPE Owerri chapter technical meeting. Today's safety brief will be on heat stress, which is the state where the body's internal temperature rises and your body cooling mechanisms are overwhelmed, leading to heat-related illnesses. And this occurs when the body can't adequately get rid of excess heat, causing your inner temperature to increase. And we've been experiencing hot weather, although from my end this morning there was a heavy downpour, but then the weather has been hot. So as the days get hotter, the dangers of walking during hot weather also increases. And knowing how to walk safely in hot weather can help prevent heat stress injuries and heat stroke that occur when the body can no longer control its temperature. So this heat stress can cause so many disorders like heat cramps, heat rashes, your high body temperature, strong and rapid pulse, confusion, blood or flood speeches, excessive heating, fatigue and sweating. And to stay safe, we need to prioritize hydration. Drink plenty of fluids, even if you don't feel thirsty. Drink water every 20, 30 minutes, especially when walking or exercising in the heat. Avoid sugary drinks and caffeine, which can dehydrate you. Stay cool. We need to stay in an air-conditioned place as much as possible. If there's no air conditioning available, you can seek shade or you use your fans. Take showers if convenient to lower the temperature. And then you can also reduce or reschedule strenuous activities, especially during the hottest part of the day. Pace yourself and avoid overexertion. Take frequent breaks in the shade to cool down and rehydrate. You can also want to wear protective clothing, wear loose-fitting, light-colored clothing that can reflect heat, wear wide-brimmed hats, and then you monitor the weather, pay attention to weather forecasts and alerts for extreme heat. Also, avoid leaving your children and pets in the vehicle because even when the windows are open, temperatures inside vehicles can rise rapidly and become dangerous. So for participants on this call, you may also ensure that your workstation is set to support a neutral posture to minimize reaching and straining. If you are driving, you may need to pull over if you must be on the call or have your earpiece or earphone on. If you're in the office, you may also want to move to a quiet place or your conference room to avoid distracting other co-workers or being distracted. You may need to ensure that your appliances are off the plug during the meeting. You may also want to grab a cup of tea, coffee, or perhaps a bottle of water to stay hydrated. I think there should also be time for break to stretch and move around. And then finally ensure you are muted during the meeting except you are being called upon. So once again, you're welcome to the call. Let's have wonderful deliberations. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Rita, for the safety briefing. For me, I think what struck me most is we staying in an air-conditioned room. And I believe most of us, the lecturers here, had none in their offices. So We move over to a welcome address from the Awka Owerri chapter coordinator by name Dr. Ifeanyi Chunko for the welcome address and announcements of the NAPE executive members. Please, Dr. Ifeanyi Chunko, the coordinator of Awka Owerri chapter. Please, you have the floor, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, George. Thank you for the work well done. So without wasting much of our time, Tunde, please, can you shoot from your end? Okay. Okay. So without wasting our time, I'm just Dr. Ifeanyi Chunko, the Awka Owerri chapter coordinator. So to the glory of God, we just this is my first kick of the TBM. So we are really grateful. So I'm glad to introduce my co-ESCOs to you. We have Dr. Choma on call. Dr. Choma Madewese, she's the deputy coordinator. Dr. Sabinu Sibeneme, the secretary. Then we have Dr. Rita Orejoka, which is the assistant secretary. We have Chibuza Haneku, publicity secretary. We have Professor Leonard Onomba, technical director. Then we have Dr. Austin Okonkwo, the treasurer. We have Dr. Chima Kevin, the financial secretary. We have George Okeke, the YP lead and the moderator of this event. Then we have Dr. Kristen Dim, the immediate past coordinator of this great chapter. Then we have Dr. Ada Okeke, who is also the immediate past deputy coordinator. So having said that, we are really grateful to just have the NAPE president on call and everyone on call. All we are saying is that just get yourself prepared. You will enjoy all our soup that we cooked for the day through one of us and one of our sons, who will now give us a good dish that he has cooked for us. So having said that, previously during the January period, we were able to host some of the certain events. Like that's what you have here is the Awka Owerri chapter Thanksgiving outing, because we still return glory to God for all things that he has been doing to us. So that was done, and we have our Mr. P with us also, and some of the ESCO as well. So we have them available on that call that day. Then we have, it's on that day actually that you have both the students available, the lecturers, and all the members of the Awka Owerri chapter. Then before now, we have some activities that have been going on in our various student chapters. We have the field work organized by the UNN chapter and UNIZIC chapter. But what interests more, or what give us more interest to this, that this is all about probing the earth. They are about just trying to unveil the key parameters of the earth, which is the subsurface that we're looking at. So the UNIZIC chapter went to Ihue's the cave. It's a good place to be. So I encourage anyone on call that maybe one of these days you can look for it. It's within Anambra here, Anambra/Abia. So we can easily go on a trip on that. You enjoy everything about the cave that you have there. So having said that, to the glory of God, one of our student chapters, the UNN chapters, emerge as the global as the champion or as the winner for the African and Europe regions for the APG ABAC competition, that is IBA competition that was held in March, I think March 29th, thereabout. So they emerged the first. So they'll be representing the entire Africa and Europe regions to that event. So soon we shall also sing to the glory of God, because they're coming back with the trophy. We have one of our past coordinator there, Dr. Dim, who is doing extremely well in that regard. So I know that this call will surely motivate them to do better, because we want to get that trophy back to Nigeria. So without wasting time, I want to invite our dear own Mr. P, John Bosco Uche, FNAPE, to take up the opening remark. But as usual, it's your own, Mr. P. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, my chapter coordinator. Not sure why this is dark, but good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Again, quite excited to always be in the midst of Awka or a chapter. Again, I continue to say thank you and well done for every single thing you've been doing from inception till date. And once more, I know we've congratulated you, our chapter coordinator, Dr. Chiwuko, but today I think is the first technical and business meeting that you're running. So again, let me re-echo the congratulations to you and give you, again, that assurance that every single support that you need throughout your tenure, you will definitely get it, not just from me, but from the entire executive committee members. As you can see already on the call,
thank you.
The vice president is dialed in, the president-elect is dialed in, and I will imagine there are probably other school members that are dialed in. Again, that already shows you the kind of support you will get and continue to get from us. So, but having said that, let me. I know the chairman is going to be introduced, and then the speaker is going to be introduced. But because we've got the strength and the knowledge, base of the industry, we will continue to use this platform to share that knowledge. And that's exactly, I think, what Dr. Obinna Chudi is going to be doing today around the Reservoir Geophysics. So I'm quite excited that we've got a good number, 100 plus, dialed in to listen to this and see what we're doing, because we will only make impact in this industry by sharing and challenging our experiences in terms of when it comes to subsurface. So I think today is one of it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from him and having an quite engaging session. Let me also commend the chapter for things you're doing, especially around the students' development. I mean, the result of the AAPG IBA is one of them, and I really wish that you go and shine. And again, let me also let the UNN know that whatever support you think NAPE specifically will do for you, please shout, and we'll be ready to help. And for all the various programs I've been watching, all your programs, engaging both the lecturers, the people in the industry, people that are working, and the students all together. And I think that's the spirit of NAPE, and it should be sustained. And I want to encourage you. And sometimes a bit of fun, like going to the cave, is a bit of looking at the subsurface, but it's also a bit of fun. And that's basically what we call work-life balance. And I think it's good that you guys are pushing in that direction. So let me pause here and say well done to every single one of you on the call. I've gone through the list, and I see many people joining from different locations, not just in Awka or a chapter. So again, it shows the trust and belief that people have in Awka or a chapter. And I'm really looking forward to your success. So with that, I will yield the floor back to you, the chapter coordinator or the moderator.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. Believe me, we are glad to have you, Mr. John Boskuche, FNAPE, the NAPE president. So we'll move over to the business of the day. We would like to introduce the chairman of this location, this business meeting, by name Professor Norbert Ejike Ajegu. Then, and the guest speaker is Dr. Obinna Chudi, who is a QI geophysics specialist from Renaissance African Energy Company. He's also on this call. And I believe we are going to have an exciting and interactive technical business meeting, because he has a whole lot to teach, and we also learn from him on his wealth of knowledge. So, a little citation on Professor Norbert Ejike Ajegu, who is a professor of petroleum geology at Nnamdi Azikiwe University. So he was born to a family of Chief Charles and Mrs. Victoria Ajegu of Uru Olioko, Nimo, in Chikoka local government area of Anambra State on the 27th of August, 1975. He obtained a bachelor's degree in geological sciences at the prestigious Nnamdi Azikiwe University in 1999. His MSc and PhD degrees were in petroleum geology, where he equally obtained in the same Department of Geological Sciences of Nnamdi Azikiwe University in 2005 and 2014, respectively. Professor Ajegu did his National Youth Service Corps with Texas overseas, the Warrior Office as a well site geologist, and later worked with Petrostrat Services Limited in Lagos as a palynologist. He later joined the services of the Geological Sciences Department as an assistant lecturer after his master's degree in 2005, and later rose to the rank of a professor in the year 2020. Professor Ajegu has a brief stay in the Laboratory Services Department of Chevron Nigeria Limited, Lagos, and Geolab of Shell Company in Nigeria, Port Harcourt, as a PhD intern and Exploration Department of Shell Company in Nigeria, Port Harcourt, as a senior research supervisor during his sabbatical attachment. He has held various positions as a lecturer in UNIZIC, the first one as the HOD of Department of Geological Sciences from 2014 to 2019. Then as his Deputy Director, National Water Resources Capacity Building Network, Southeastern Zone from 2019 to 2023. Professor Norbert, you are welcome, sir.
Okay, thank you, George, for my citation. Thank you, everyone. I want to join the host of others to welcome everyone in this call for this our May technical meeting. It's my pleasure to introduce to us the guest speaker for today's event. He's no other person than Dr. Obinna Chudi. Dr. Chudi studied applied geology from the Abubakar Tafawa Balewa University, Bauchi, Nigeria, and he has a BTech. He went on to do MSc in Petroleum Geosciences from the Newcastle University in the United Kingdom, after which he proceeded for his PhD in Petroleum Geoscience from Reservoir University in the Scotland, United Kingdom. For his experiences, he has worked in Nigeria and outside Nigeria. He started as a log analyst with Reed Well Services in Aberdeen and transferred his service to Shell Petroleum Company, Nigeria, as an access petrophysicist, and went on to work with Shell as a QI petrophysicist in the area of rock physics. Then move on with Shell again as an exploration geoscientist. Presently, he's working as a QI geophysicist with the arrangement of Shell and Renaissance Energy Company. His major achievements, he has helped the company which he worked to drill over 10 successive wells, where the outcome of the prognosis matched with the QI prediction. As the going goes, he is a man that loves fun. During his spare time, he likes kayaking, hiking, music, and movies. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you our speaker for today's event, Dr. Obinna Chudi. Good luck, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. I really appreciate the accolades and on in the introduction as well. I hope it's okay for me to kick off, or is there something else, or I can just start rolling it?
You can go ahead, share your screen.
Okay, let me share my screen. Yeah, just let me know once you can see it.
Okay, it's up.
Okay. All right, thank you. Once again, good morning, everyone, to the chapter executives, the president of NAPE, and to all the attendees here. Thank you for the opportunity to make this presentation today. I don't take this lightly. This is one opportunity I've always craved for, to share knowledge and I mean, it's part of nation building, I believe, because I know there are a host of students here too. So in the course of my presentation, I'll try as much as possible to drill down to the nitty-gritty, such that a final year geologist in the university or a 100-level student in the university can probably, hopefully, understand the concepts and principles of what I'm going to be presenting. So today I'll be talking about unlocking sweet spots using reservoir geophysics techniques, a strategy for well placement optimization. And of course, we work in an integrated team. We don't work in silos, we work across board. So I'm also making this presentation on behalf of the underlisted co-authors as well, who have contributed in no small way to ensuring that this work is a success. Okay, let me see. Okay, so in the course of my presentation, I will give a brief overview of sweet spots, definition, and so in a way, what are the things we consider if we want to locate those sweet spots in the context of hydrocarbon exploration and, of course, exploitation development. We will narrow that understanding of the sweet spots across two case studies, one in deep water setting and the other in shallow offshore. And I will conclude with a summary in terms of the learnings that we can get out of this presentation today. So, by way of definition, in the oil and gas industry, which of course the work today is centered around, the sweet spot refers to the most productive areas within a reservoir in the subsurface. And most times when we talk about productivity of a reservoir, it's usually attributed to rock properties, the porosity, the permeability, and of course saturation. In the oil and gas, we are looking always to develop clean energy and of course deliver that energy in a safe manner. And that's what we always look out for. And the way we go about it is really important. So we're not just drilling wells for drilling's sake, right? It's more complex than even drilling your water wells. You have to really be precise. You have to be, to a great extent, level of accuracy must be high, because each of these wells that we drill costs millions and millions of dollars, to say the least. So if you compare that with a borehole well that you drill at the backyard that costs probably 300,000 naira or maybe 1 million naira, as the case may be, depending on your geographical location. The oil and gas industry, irrespective of where you are, that cost will ramp up significantly in the millions and millions of dollars. So that's the definition of sweet spots. It's an indication of the reservoir properties, right? Your porosity, your net to gross, your permeability, and of course your saturation. And the question is, how do you go about identifying where that sweet spot is located that has the best of all these properties? We typically deploy certain techniques, from surface seismic to borehole seismic. We integrate that with dynamic simulation. And of course, we deploy some level of machine learning in this day and age that AI is also taking center stage, not just in the oil and gas industry, but across board. Okay, so we typically deploy that. But for today's presentation, it's going to largely be centered around surface seismic, and in a way, how we've integrated that with dynamic simulation. Okay, so surface seismic, that is largely what we're going to be centered on. Now, in surface seismic, on the use of surface seismic, we typically deploy a technique we call seismic inversion. Okay, and seismic inversion here is you taking your seismic data, your raw seismic data as acquired or processed, and will I say, extracting geological information from that seismic data. Okay, such that the wiggles you see in the seismic data can be used as a proxy to infer lithology, porosity, and fluid. Again, remember that our sweet spots, what we are looking out for are good sands, thick sands, highly porous sands, and of course, this fluid saturation should give you an indication of high oil or gas saturation depending on your development strategy. Okay, so seismic inversion is a way of converting that seismic data to geological attributes. So just by way of expanding on that definition, let's assume you start with an earth model, like the earth model some of you went for in terms of the field trip, and you saw those nice outcrops. So let's start with that. And in the Niger Delta, and in some parts of other sedimentary basins in Nigeria, our geology is to a great extent, quite simple. Okay, simple in the sense that we are dealing with sand shale couplets. Okay, sand shale reservoirs, reservoirs overlain by shale units, where your sands are the reservoirs, your shales are your caprock that prevents the flow of hydrocarbon or the hydrocarbon from leaking out of the reservoir, or your shales could be your source rock. Okay, so but generally in terms of the overall geology, we are looking at sand shale sequences, and each of these sand shale sequence will have a unique property in terms of will I say elastic property in density. The density of the sand will be different from the density of the shale, and of course the velocity as well. So if you run a seismic signal across this sand unit you see on the screen, yeah, the velocity and the density will vary from sands to shale, and that variation will also be evident even as you go from shallow reservoir, younger sands, younger sediments, to older, very older units. Okay, so and the integration of these two will I say properties, the density and the velocity of any one rock unit, is known as acoustic impedance. Okay, acoustic impedance. So we believe that due to variation in properties of the shale and the sand, the underlying sand, the acoustic impedance will vary. And that interface that defines their variation is what seismic actually looks out for. And of course, we move from there to define mathematically that variation from shale to sand, and we represent that as reflection coefficient. Okay, so that it means that using this equation, this simplified equation, you can actually define how that acoustic impedance varies from the sand unit and the overlying shale unit. And that variation could mean a negative reflection coefficient or a positive reflection coefficient, depending on the absolute values of the acoustic impedance in the shale versus the acoustic impedance in the underlying sand. And if you in the strict sense, when we bring in our wavelets, a wavelet represents the seismic pulse that has been sent into the subsurface. Okay, and mathematically we see it as a wavelet, right? And when you convolve that wavelet with your reflection coefficient, okay, you arrive at a seismic data, wiggles. So this is what typical seismic data looks like. Okay, so when someone tells you, looking at the seismic data, probably depending on where you are, it could be red and black, or red and some other color, or blue, right? Those colors represent something, right? And of course, going from the Earth model down to the seismic, you can see that the only thing that has been added here is the wavelet. And of course, there's an element of noise associated with it, okay? But the key discriminator between seismic data and your geology is the wavelet. And this whole process of arriving at this point is called forward model, which typically is seen when you acquire your seismic data or when you build a synthetic seismogram. So synthetic seismogram is a synthetic seismic data that you generate manually from the workstation when you convolve a wavelet with reflection with your reflection coefficient. Okay, so this is how we get to seismic data in a simplified manner, really, in a simplified manner. So the question is, how do I extract my geology from this seismic data such that we can infer, i.e., lithology, we can infer porosity, and we can infer fluid? Because by me looking at this seismic data, really, you cannot really tell much. You can't. No one can look at the seismic data and say, "Oh, this color represents shale, or that color represents sand." Oh, or this color means 20% porosity, or 50%, or 50% neck to gross. You can't do that just by me looking at the seismic data. Okay, so the whole idea now is to back calculate from that seismic data your geology. So remember, I said we convolve wavelet with reflection coefficients. In a very simple mathematics sense, we multiply. Okay, so if we use that simple mathematics sense, we multiply wavelet by reflection coefficient. Now, when we want to walk back from the seismic data, we will divide our seismic data by the wavelet so that we get back our true geology. So, but there's also something that is missing when you go from seismic back to your geology. The seismic data, when you acquire it, it has what we call, it's band limited. The frequency content is band limited. So you don't have the exact range of frequencies that you would see in a log. You don't see it in the seismic data. So it means that if you don't accommodate the deficiency of that that low frequency domain that is missing your seismic data, you might not be able to accurately predict your rock property, i.e. lithology or fluid field or porosity. So what we do, in addition to deconvolving the seismic data off its wavelet, we also add a low frequency model to it, such that your seismic data move from band limited to full band to a great extent. Again, these are all sit within the realm of model. So when you're building a model, you will not accurately predict your subsurface, right? But you try as much as possible to mirror that subsurface, given the data you have, and of course the pitfalls within your data as well. Okay, so you walk back from that seismic to your geology. I mean, if you look at this view graph here, you can say that you start seeing things showing up. You start seeing bed boundaries clearly defined. Okay, you can infer those colors here, yellow, blue, to mean sands and shale. I mean, that would be after you've done what we call a well to seismic tie. Okay. And you can move from this acoustic impedance model and predict actual rock property like porosity, for instance. And that is largely governed by rock physics analysis that will relate porosity, that will relate acoustic impedance to a particular rock property like porosity. I'm going to be showing that in subsequent slides, but this just gives an idea of how we can use surface seismic data with its wiggles and all the noise that it contains, and extract some information from it geologically that can help us understand where those sweet spots are. So in moving forward, like I said, we're going to be looking at 2 case studies, one in deep water setting and another in shallow water. And I would like to say that the work that I'm presenting here, particularly the deep water example, we've presented it some time back in 2018 at both NAPE, our typical NAPE conference, and of course at the SPE. So I'm going to be sharing some references later, which you can also indulge yourself with if you want to get more information about this particular case study. So it's already in the public domain. I think that's the key point here. It's already in the public domain. You can also you can get them. So this is the case study in the deep water setting. And the bathymetric map you see there is shows the area of study, which is in the amber color there. The location is offshore Niger Delta, of course. It sits in the water depth of about 1,200 meters on the average. And the field is a partially appraised field with about 4 wells. Okay, at the time we had not produced from this opportunity, and for this particular reservoir, we can see an amplitude map here that showcases some features. Now, but the key thing I want to bring out from this amplitude map is that we only have 1 well penetration for this particular reservoir. So it means that I understand my rock property at this well location. Away from this well location, it's an unknown territory. So I don't know what this high amplitude anomalies, what they represent in terms of net to gross, in terms of porosity, in terms of saturation. You understand? So it's an uncertainty, particularly for this reservoir. Okay, but what you can see clearly is that you see those bright amplitudes showing up, and they show up as some sort of a channelized fan system. So we see a channelized fan complex within this opportunity. Okay, and we all know that in the deep water setting, the dominant lithology is pelagic shale, right? That's the dominant lithology you find in deep water settings. The sands come in as a result of falling sea level, and you now have your channels being forming as a conduit for sediments to be deposited down flank or downstream in the deep water environment. So it's largely pelagic shales, and the point here is that because it's dominated by pelagic shales, net to gross, the ratio of your sands to your shale becomes really, really important, and becomes important as a factor that qualifies a good sweet spot. I think that's the key message here, that net to gross will be a key factor that will qualify where you define as your sweet spot. Okay, and the study moving forward was to help us deploy some technique that will enable us to understand that net to gross, which is the key determinant here as a potential factor that drives our sweet spot definition. Now, even though it's a factor that drives our sweet spot definition, there are other factors too, but that ranks number 1, of course, because of your depositional environment. So, by way of the material or methods that was deployed, and of course, I kicked off with a rundown of what an inversion is. So, in the world of inversion, there are different types of inversion. Okay, from very simple, what we call cheap inversion, colored inversion. You now move down to full stack inversion. Then you go into something more complex, we call simultaneous inversion. Okay, so in the inversion space, what you're doing is like I explained earlier on, you're walking back from your seismic data to your geology. Okay, so when you're using one single seismic data, it's called a full stack inversion in that sense. So you're using your full stack seismic volume. But for simultaneous inversion, you are using at least 3 substack volume. Okay, your near, mid, and far. At least those 3. Okay, and you mathematically simultaneously integrate those 3 seismic volume to derive elastic properties such as P impedance, S impedance, density, and VPVS. Okay, now from this suite of elastic properties, you can now calculate or predict what your lithology will be, or porosity, or fluid, or net to gross. Well, like I said, net to gross for us for this particular study was the primary property that we were gunning for. Now, for every inversion that we build, it is governed by a rock physics model that tells you if indeed an inversion will be suitable for that study. So rock physics is all about using raw data, hard data, and in this case, logs. So you drill your well, you acquire your logs. Your logs are records of rock properties that have been measured along your well bore. So those logs those measurements could be measurements that indicate lithology, such as gamma ray. There could be measurements that represent velocity, measurements that infer density. So we have our density log. Okay, but the key logs for us in the geophysics space, okay, when we want to do studies like this, is your compressional velocity, your shear velocity, and of course your density. We call those logs acoustic logs. Okay, so with those logs, you calculate acoustic impedance, which is a multiplication of your density and your velocity. That is acoustic impedance. And of course, that's what drives our seismic data. That's what's inherent in the seismic data, acoustic impedance. We can also calculate shear impedance from your shear sonic log. And that's just a multiplication of your shear velocity and your density. Okay, when you cross plot those 2 elastic properties, okay, you will clearly see, if the geology permits, a discrimination of sands, okay, and shale. Now, this clearly tells you that these 2 properties, acoustic impedance, compressional, which is your compressional velocity multiplied by density, and your acoustic impedance shear, which is your shear velocity multiplied by your density, can be used as a proxy for lithology. That's what this just tells me, because from this cross plot, I can separate sands and I can separate shale. Okay, and based on this separation, I can define a trend. And when back in secondary school, we all did quadratic equation, and there were different types of quadratic equation. We also looked at simultaneous quadratic equation, where you bring together 2 different equations and you simultaneously calculate a given variable, right? It's the same thing, the same concept. So when you hear simultaneous inversion, you are simultaneously convolving 2 different properties. So I could take the trend line, the equation that represents this trend line, that is your y equals to mx plus c, and here the y equals to mx plus c here, and mathematically or simultaneously integrate those 2 equations, and that will be used as some sort of proxy for net to gross. There is a paper in the reference list that also explains this very well, which I've captured, so you're going to see that later. Okay, but the bottom line here is that my rock physics cross plot is a key information that determines what kind of model to build, or what kind of inversion model you can build to answer any one question. Okay, so we built that inversion model, simultaneous inversion model, and this is the result. Okay. If you look at my well here, what I have here for well A, B, and C is a description of my net to gross along the well location, okay, for each of those well. That is, I have the log-based net to gross. So this is hard data, which is in black. The green represents my model or seismically derived net to gross from the inversion model. So this is the net to gross extracted at the well location. And what we can see that to a great extent, we're able to predict our sands as we see them from the raw logs, okay, at different level, at different depth windows. And this is a good calibration. This gives me some level of impetus to say, okay, I can use my model as a proxy, okay, to understand my sweetness, my sweet spots. Because now I have my net to gross. On map view, this is the distribution of net to gross. You can see the scale from 0 to 1. Net to gross is quoted in fractions, right? So we go from 0 to 1, where 1 is your high net to gross and 0 is your low net to gross. Okay. And remember, I told you for this particular reservoir, we only had one well penetration. So away from that one well, we can see that you've got very good net to gross across board. So with this information, it gave us some level of, will I say, comfort feel to know where we will position our producer and an injector. So in a deep water setting, because of the very low drive mechanism, a natural by natural drive mechanism, I mean, we usually use a water flooding technique to ensure that we sweep our hydrocarbon efficiently and effectively. So for that reason, we drill 2 wells, a producer and an injector pair. So for every producer, you're going to have an associated injector. The injector will flush in water into the reservoir that will serve as a drive mechanism to sweep the hydrocarbon up deep to the injector, which will be produced. Okay, so and the key thing was for us to accurately locate that sweet spot where our producer and injector will sit, and we're able to do that. And the line of section, the section view is taken across from this map, line A to B, where the green bulb there is your injector and your red is your producer. And that's the reservoir there. You can see your producer sitting nicely within a very high net to gross window, and your injector as well. So it means that when you start producing from this reservoir, your sweep efficiency will be top notch. Okay, so again, the net to gross was a key parameter that helped us to determine that sweet spot. I mean, if you compare this reservoir with the reservoir above, you will notice that the net to gross is not that great, just by comparison. So assuming I had my producer well for this reservoir here, and I had an injector well for this particular reservoir sitting here, you will observe that in between there is a very low net to gross value there, right? Very low net to gross, probably less than 20% or something. So it means that the pressure coming in from an injector sitting here will not be felt at the producer sitting up there, because the net to gross is not optimal. There's a disconnect in terms of net to gross value. So just an example. But here you can see the net to gross value appears to be consistently high as you go from injector, which is down deep of the structure, to a producer, which is located up deep. One other thing which we consider, and like I said in my opening, one of my opening slides, that we also looked at the dynamic model as well. Why is the dynamic model important? Because you're going to drill a well, and we've now using from the static domain, we've defined potential sweet spots, and we've defined potential optimal locations for our well. You want to test that in your dynamic model to see if it actually would do what you intended to do in terms of ensuring that your ultimate recovery from that producer will be in line with your forecast. Okay, so in your dynamic model, at the time we honored some assumptions. One, that we expect that if we drill this well, the producer and injector, and we start producing, we expect production for about 25 years. Okay, that was an assumption we took on board in the dynamic simulation. Okay, and of course, kicking off from say December 2026. Okay, and with a constant to be head pressure of 1,000 psi, and we hope at the time that our ultimate recovery, based on the recovery factor of about 24%, will be about 64 million stock tank barrel. Okay, with those assumptions, you can see at the start where so this actually represents your initial saturation before production, and this is final saturation at the end of 25 years. So obviously you see that around the vicinity of your injector producer pair, you see a very good sweep of your hydrocarbon. Okay, but the key thing that the dynamic model, this what we call this sweet plot shows, it also shows you areas where you have potential bypass oil zones that you can ultimately in future design a development strategy for the bypass oil zones, which are all these accumulations you see here. But again, one key thing that the dynamic model tells us is our development philosophy adequate? One well, one producer, one injector, will it do the job, or do we need more wells? Okay, and you place that at the backdrop of the overall economics and determine if you need an extra well to drain the entire accumulation. But yes, this is where you bring in dynamic simulations integrated with your static model to understand how these sweet spots, which you've defined, how it's going to behave over time in terms of longevity now. So that's for this particular case study. And we move on to the next and final case study, which sits shallow offshore. So we are going in a transgressive move from onshore to offshore. Okay. So for this particular opportunity, the value opportunity aimed at developing gas. So we come from onshore, offshore, where we are looking at oil, and we're moving to gas. And you're going to see the thinking behind this particular opportunity, how it somewhat differs from the offshore opportunity, which I shared earlier on. Okay, so this is a gas development project aimed at feeding gas to LNG Train 7. The technical objective is to improve our understanding of one of our reservoirs, the J8 reservoir. Now, we've got 2 wells that had already been drilled in this opportunity. Okay, well 1, you can see the J8 reservoir. Look at how it looks. I mean, the yellows are sands, the brown, or I mean the black or grays are shale. And this is our reservoir of interest. And someone might ask, why is that a reservoir of interest? Of course, we have all those reservoirs that are of interest, okay? But this is where the uncertainty is greatest for this particular reservoir, because you can see it's quite thin as penetrated by this well. So you need some other techniques to unravel the nature of this sand away from this well location, so that you can accurately define your sweet spots for production. Okay. So what did we do? So on the top right hand is the well 2. So like I say, we had like 2 wells drilled on this across this particular opportunity, and you see well 2 has got very good sands. Okay, compared to well 1. So there's no clear trend in how the sands are behaving as you move from well 1 to well 2, and possibly away from those 2 wells. So the sands can increase or it can decrease. Again, our understanding of reservoir behavior is also interpreted on the backdrop of a very, very sound geological model. Okay, but what I'm trying to bring out here is for well 2, it encountered near enough very good sand. And of course, towards the top of that unit, the sand starts becoming a bit radioactive to shaly. Overall, you see that it's the top unit that appears to be hydrocarbon bearing, okay, which I've colored there in green. The unit below is radioactive. If you ask me why is it how do I know it's radioactive? If I look at my density neutron, you can see the density neutron gives an indication of sand compared to shale, very thick shale that sits above there, which is this. Okay. And of course, that's a very clean sand at the bottom, which is brine filled. So the only unit that is hydrocarbon bearing is that thin unit there for this particular, across this particular well. Okay, so now the question is, what kind of model can I build to further understand how my reservoirs is behaving away from these two wells, and of course fluid fill. And again, the most importantly, where do I optimally locate my future development wells? So these are cross plots of acoustic impedance versus gamma ray for this plot. Again, these are log based. So this the calculated acoustic impedance from my velocity and density log. Okay, of course, this is the gamma ray that was also plotted here. So what you see clearly in the acoustic impedance domain, and that's my shale data, my shale point there. You can see to a great extent that I can separate my sands. So all these colored units there, as colored from the logs there, represent sands. It could be shaly sands or clean sands, as the case may be, or hydrocarbon-bearing sands. But overall, I can actually put a line here that separates my shale from my sands. So it tells me that acoustic impedance model will be useful in understanding sands and shale. If I come to this other cross plot, it's a cross plot of mu rho, an elastic property that indicates rigidity and can be used as a proxy for lithology. Okay, and lambda rho is an indication of rock compressibility and can be used to infer the presence of fluid or fluid type. So, but what we see here generally is that in the lambda rho's domain, my gas sand, though it is very thin and shaly, I can separate it to a great extent from my brine-bearing sands. Okay, and of course from the shale as well. So it means that this lambda rho, if I build a lambda rho model, I can discriminate hydrocarbon-bearing sands from shale. Now, I've been able to differentiate lithology. I've been able to a great extent, differentiate fluid. But what about my rock properties like porosity? So this is a rock physics model of porosity, log-based porosity, like this porosity here. Okay, cross-plotted with acoustic impedance. And generally, you see a trend. It means that the lower my acoustic impedance, the higher the porosity. And my porosity will reduce as acoustic impedance increases. So by proxy, high acoustic impedance means low porosity. Low acoustic impedance means high porosity. And with this equation from this trend, I can mathematically use this equation in my inversion space and back calculate porosity from an acoustic impedance model. That's the whole idea. That's after building an acoustic impedance model, like I explained in the theoretical explanation of what an inversion is, I can back calculate porosity from that acoustic impedance model. Okay, so going straight ahead to the challenge we found ourselves with this J8 reservoir. This is a section view that cuts across different reservoir units. Okay, so you have the J8 sitting there. We have other reservoir units. Of course, the reservoirs are in blue. Okay, Now that's a fault. It's a fault-assisted closure. Okay. You see that some of our reservoirs terminate against that fault, serving as a trap, as a trap. The fault forms a structural trap there, right? But what you observe is that the J8 sand does not extend to that fault clearly. Okay. But you see other reservoirs at the shallow level, you can see it lapping against the fault or shutting off against that fault. And when we looked at this section view, we interpreted that this could be as a result of an erosive channel eroding your J8 reservoir, forming like erosional truncation, truncating that sand. And if you look closely at the base there, you see relics of that sand being dragged by that erosive, mud-rich erosive channel. Of course, it's mud-rich. If it wasn't mud-rich, it would have been as bright as what we have here. Okay. And if you look at the amplitude map, for a start, this is where well 2 is located. That's where well 1 is located. The amplitude starts to decay as you go from northwest to southeast. And that decay could mean a decay in rock property, a decay in sand development. Of course, if you look at the wells, well 2 and well 1, in that order, you see that the sand unit starts to reduce, or it becomes shaly as you go from well 2 to well 1. Interestingly, at the time, based on just on the information we had at the time, we defined our optimal well location sitting at that point, based on the information we had at the time, the quality of the seismic data and all that. Okay. But integrating further information, we started to see things playing out more interesting than we saw from the previous data that we had. And one other reason why we had located our well here was this was the most crystal part of the structure. So usually for a gas well, you want to stay as crystal as possible when you want to develop it, okay? And but we built an acoustic impedance model, and this is an acoustic impedance map. And clearly the geology starts to come out, okay? The geology starts to reveal itself. This is a channelized fan system. The entire system is a channelized fan system. And we see some sort of low-bed feature within our area of interest. And we see more channelized fan there towards the west of that entire structure. But most importantly, if you consider the scale of this acoustic impedance, the lower values are in very bright color, low acoustic impedance. The high acoustic impedance are in very, will I say, yellowish color. But you start seeing that outside of that structure, you're moving away from very clean sand to a very shaly sand within that mud-rich channel, which we have interpreted. So the mud-rich channel sits somewhere around there. And that was where we had our initial planned well. Okay. So other models that we introduced is the lambda rule. Like I said, is a measure of compressibility that tells you where your hydrocarbon is located. So the lower the lambda rule value, the higher the compressibility, and your gas is more compressible than your brine. And of course, gas sands are more compressible than shale. Okay, so but you see that this is our structure, and you see as you move away towards the crest of the structure is down that way. You start seeing that mud-rich channel flowing in, okay, eroding your main body, your main channel sands. You see it even more pronounced in this other acoustic impedance map as well. It's a 3D map, okay. And the white bulb there was our initial well. Okay, so based on that, we had to redesign our development philosophy in terms of positioning our well in the sweet spots. And these two maps, next slide here, is an integration of acoustic impedance map and porosity. So remember, the porosity was derived from acoustic impedance based on that trend that I showed earlier on. And by looking at the acoustic impedance, again, from the scale, my sands are red, my shales are much darker color. So you see all my sands showing up there. But as you go from the flank of the structure to the crest of the structure, you see a bit of decay in that sand quality up to the most crestal part, which is where this, if you look closely, you see a blue line there, which was the previous well we had, and which sits within the mud-rich channel. The dotted line there is the boundary of the mud-rich channel. So having defined or mapped this boundary of the mud-rich channel, howbeit it sits within the most crestal part of this structure, we have to redefine an alternative structural high, okay, which will inform our decision on where to reposition this well, okay? And looking at the porosity as well, you see that the porosity, again, the scale goes from 0 to 30. So very high porosity sits at that flank, but we still see very good porosity within this window, which is the next most crestal area on this map. Okay, and based on the integration of the net to gross, of the acoustic impedance, which is a proxy for lithology, and my porosity map, which is, of course, gives us an indication of your reservoir quality, we went ahead to define a potential sweet spot. So the white polygon there is an area that we will consider as a sweet spot where we will drill our development well for gas. The other consideration is that, we had, like I said earlier on, we had wells drilled previously, and one of those wells encountered the gas water contact. So, an additional information when defining your sweet spot is you need the most crestal area that is far away from your gas water contact. So you need enough standoff from that gas water contact. And the reason is you want to avoid early water encroachments, okay, that would impede future gas development. So you want to prevent early water bypass and of course compromise your development overall. So that was one of the consideration, and this location actually sits quite crestal compared to the gas water contact that was logged. Okay, and again, just a bit of confidence in the porosity model. Like I said, we have two wells that was logged, and we have the porosities that shows the model versus log-based porosity. So in summary, what have we learned across board? What have we learned from both case studies, the offshore case study, and of course the shallow water case study? One, the understanding of our sweet spot is largely driven by reservoir quality, okay, be it net to gross, porosity, permeability, and saturation. Okay, so again, you have to understand your geology and know what works best for you. Okay, if you know what works best for you in terms of understanding how your net to gross varies across your structure or across your reservoir, you deploy it. For us, what we have observed from the offshore environment, moving to shallow water, is that our seismic inversion technique forms an integral tool that can be used as a proxy to understand reservoir quality and therefore define our sweet spots. Okay. Other techniques that can be deployed, like I said earlier on, you can also use machine learning. In this case, we integrated our seismic inversion with dynamic simulation models, which of course helped us to further granulate our understanding of that defined sweet spots. Okay, and overall, and I'll keep on saying this, any model built should be interpreted on the backdrop of a sound geologic model. The geology, your local understanding of the geology, drives your interpretation of your seismic data or any data at all. So I would like to leave it here. These are some of the materials that are in the public domain that you can further explore and get more insights into the technique, the definition of sweet spots, and of course, and how you can integrate all those techniques in your field development strategy. So thanks. I'd like to leave it there for comments and of course questions. Before before questions starts coming in, I've got my my boss here, Mr. Austin Anevune. Maybe he wants to say one or two things before the question starts coming in.
All right, thank you, Dr. Obinna. Chudi. Indeed, if you can see from the publication in NAPE 2019, Dr. Obinna has worked extensively on how to, derive properties from seismic and then also to predict the fluids. So this is just in continuation of the excellent delivery. And what you also see, he mentioned this when he started, is the passion to share knowledge and the passion to also reach the young ones. And that is the singular thing that has been driving him sharing widely. Most of this work also, if you see, my name was also part of those publications. I followed him over these years. So again, thank you very much. That's all I can say. And then I sit by if there's any other question we want to go to the theoretical basis. I'm here also to lend my support.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, sir. Okay, George, over to you to moderate comments or questions.
Okay, fine. All right, thank you, Dr. Chudi.
George, that should be the chairman. The chairman should be the one that moderate, please.
Okay, yeah.
The chairman. It's after this event, you take over. Yes, yeah. Thank you. Automabat.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, want to know the people that have comments and questions. So if you have any, let us hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I don't know if I can. We actually have some questions that have been sent across. I think we can just read it out to the presenter for him to answer.
Okay, go ahead.
I also have some questions in the chat box. So I will start with the ones in the question and answer box. The first one is, by the way, thank you, Dr. Chudi, for the wonderful presentation. The first question we have here is, what determines the distance between the producer and the injector wells?
Okay, thanks. Really, there is no clear-cut definition of that distance. Really, it's largely driven by the reservoir size itself. Okay, and how whatever you have defined as your potential sweet spot for your producer and injector, how it's been tested in a dynamic model. If the dynamic model shows that the location is adequate, then we work with that. Otherwise, if it's suboptimal, then we revise that trajectory and we define it. Again, it's the size of the pie to a great extent that will define the location itself and the kind of structure you're dealing with. So when you're working with an anticlinal structure, you want your producer at the crest and your injector down flank of that structure. Okay, but most importantly, it is also driven by the economics. So what are you what do you intend to achieve from that injector producer pair? What volume do you want to do you want to extract from that producer, and will that distance between your producer and injector be sufficient to allow you produce adequately or sweep have that good sweep across board? So that's one of the key things that you consider. But again, it's all going to be tested in the dynamic model, and where it's required to be revised, then it will be revised.
Okay, thank you so much for that answer. Ahmed, I hope your question has been answered. Okay, the second question we have here is from Chokube Didi. He is asking, is there any technique one can use to apply seismic inversion on post-stack data?
Yeah. So yeah, very good question. Very good question. So there are different flavors of inversion. Okay. There is your cheap inversion, where you don't even use wells to build those inversion. You just rotate your seismic data, mathematically rotate that seismic data. Then you now have what we call your post-stack inversion, where you use your full band seismic data. Okay, so indeed, your full band seismic data typically, because your full band assumes that your incident ray is at zero, so it has all been stacked to times zero. You don't or to angle zero rather, if there's such thing as angle zero. So that is your full stack, and that information will typically give you a more precise understanding of acoustic impedance contrast. So that's where your full stack inversion comes in, or what we call post-stack inversion. Okay, then you move from post-stack to pre-stack inversion, where you now bring in sub-stack volume. So your volumes have been stacked at different angles or different offsets. So you have your near, mid, and far, and that's what we call simultaneous inversion. So by way of definition, I've defined like 3 different types of inversions here. So post-stack is one of them. You just use one single seismic volume, and that generally gives you an understanding, or is modeled for acoustic impedance. Hello?
Hello, Chibuz, are you there, please?
Okay, yeah, sorry, I was muted, yeah. Please, so we have another question from Olusegun Akimuda. He is asking, how can we confidently identify bypassed oil without first calibrating 4D seismic data with the reservoir simulation model?
Well, accurately, the way you identify bypass is by integrating all suites of data. Okay, of course, you are starting with the model that gives you some level of understanding from the dynamic sense. And of course, if you've produced over a time, some from the log domain, we typically acquire what we call a carbon oxygen log that tells you how your contacts have moved over time at the 1D level. Okay, and that is a very good information which you also bring to the table. Okay, and then you now move to the 4D, of course, which forms, will I say, an ultimate technique that gives you a spatial understanding of your bypass, because I mean you want to see it from a regional perspective, not just from 1D. Okay, so you start from your model, you build it in to your 1D, your logs, your carbon oxygen logs that shows how your contacts have varied over time. Then you now move into the regional seismic domain, where you have your repeat seismic data, your 4D seismic, and that can be used to infer that potential bypassed hydrocarbon. Okay, so it's not just one single technique. It's an integration of various suites of techniques.
All right. Thank you for that. Okay, the next question. It says, that's from Oludare Babalola. Can we improvise even without all the logs listed? For example, if I have just gamma ray resistivity, neutron and porosity logs, can I still predict sweet spots?
Yeah. So yeah, of course you can. So I mean, there is no there. Sometimes we say there is no perfect world, right? You're not you might not be at the position of advantage where you have all your streets of data. So, and that's why you integrate different suites of techniques, one that enables you to use logs and others that will not enable you to use logs. Okay. So if I had just gamma ray, resistivity, porosity, and of course, if I have porosity, it means that I've calculated that porosity from density in log, okay, or maybe from sonic log, depending. But I mean, for us in the classic setting, where we don't have carbonates with different suites of porosity. Our density is the most appropriate tool for calculating porosity. So in that case, if I have density, I can go into a modeling exercise to model sonic. But again, when you model, you have to build it with some level of uncertainty, right? With some level of degree of uncertainty because you're going with a modeled data. And with that, you can progress. Remember, I talked about cheap inversion or colored inversion where you don't even use logs to build the inversion. So you can also do that, just your seismic data. But bear in mind, again, it's you have to understand the pitfalls and define those or use those pitfalls to define your uncertainty range. Remember again, your question is really valid because there are frontier areas that we usually go to where there are no wells at all. What do? We make the most out of our data, and most times we might only just have seismic at our within our data room. So, and that's all we work with. So yes, you can work with those minimum amount of data, but the most important thing, understand your boundary condition and build it into your model building process.
Good, thank you.
I think PS, sorry.
Yes.
PS, I think we can just have only one again, and the rest can go offline. So due to the time factor, please, so that you can be able to round up. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, all right. Let me take this one question. So it's from one Philip Steven, and the question is: how do specific geophysical attributes help differentiate sweet spots in heterogeneous reservoirs?
Okay, thanks. Good question. So heterogeneous reservoir here means reservoirs that have let's say, very high percentage of non-reservoir, right? So you're looking at a shaly sand. So you probably have 40% shale, 60% sand, or you might be dealing with maybe some other non-reservoir ingrained in your reservoir. So overall, your net to gross is low. I think that's the bottom line. Your net to gross is low. So when dealing with reservoirs like that, for any geophysical modeling strategy for us in the quantitative interpretation space now, the starting point is with your logs. Okay, from your logs, you can build rock physics models, like I shared with you guys, all those cross plots, because your log is your hard data. And you can try different elastic properties. You can try acoustic impedance, shear impedance, lambda rho, different. There are a dozen, lots of elastic properties you can test. And find out which one works for your geology, your local geology. I think that for me, that's what I've presented is not a silver bullet, but it is an indication of what can be used and what can be applied. So you start from the rock physics. The rock physics will tell you what elastic property that can be used to understand your heterogeneous reservoir. Okay, and with that, you build a rock property, you build that elastic property that actually answers that question. Okay, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's what I can think of. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine. So because of the limited time we have, I think we'll stop here. But I think Dr. Chudi is available. If you have any question, you can reach out to him directly. Chairman, over to you, Professor Norbert.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Chudi. I never know, maybe through the chapter, those who has other questions can send it across, we'll forward to him.
Yeah.
Or once it's that in, we can equally link up to him so that you can he can answer the remaining questions. So we're thanking you, sir, for your wonderful presentation. And I believe all of us have learned new things today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
All right. George, please, you can take over for the rest of the program. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Professor Norbert Ajay. And also thank you, Chibuza Haneko, the Owerri Chapter Publicity Secretary. Dr. Obinna, you do a whole lot of work for us. We are glad to have you on this call. And those who died in, we are massive to listen to you. Drive us into the world of quantitative geophysics, and we are glad. So we move to the presentation of awards to the guest speaker and chairperson by the Owerri Chapter Coordinator by name Dr. Chinwoko. Dr. Chinwoko, please, you have the floor, sir.
Okay. Thank you, George. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Obinna. This is a very, very entertaining presentation. I feel like you should not stop, but we must stop. We must call it a day. If not, I wouldn't mind giving you extra 3 hours to keep giving us what you are known for.
Thank you.
We are really grateful
Thank
to
you,
you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so
Doctor.
much. Thank you so much. We are really grateful, sir. So, on behalf of Owerri Chapter, we don't have a token for you. It's not money, but it's more than money. So this this certificate is just is an award of excellence presented to you on this Dr. Obinna Chudi for your presentation, wonderful presentation you have done to Owerri Chapter through the NAPE. So we are really grateful. All we are saying is that please just accept us. What we'll do is that we'll try and send this across to you, maybe through through post, through fast post, so that the hard copy can easily get to you. Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
Really grateful for you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Owerri Chapter. Really appreciate you all. Sincere appreciation to the chapter chairman, of course, to today's presentation chairman as well. And of course, to all the executives of NAPE, the NAPE president, vice president, and the incoming president as well. Thank you all for everything. Really appreciate the opportunity given to share this knowledge.
Thank you so much. We are grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. George, over to you. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, the Owerri Chapter Coordinator, Dr. Chinwoko. And we are also grateful to Dr. Obinna Chudi for that insightful presentation. So we move over to the announcement of the NAPE activities by Somimi Oguntola, who is the National Publicity Secretary. Ma, are you in the call? Mrs.
I think
Oguntola?
Owerri Chapter PS will stand in for her.
Okay, fine.
Yes. Chibuzo
right.
Ahaneku. Yes.
Chibuzo, please kindly help us and give us the announcement, please. Thank you. Mr. Chibuzo, are you there?
Yeah, yes. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Hello, Chibuzo. Are you there?
Following the slides.
Hello, Chibuzo.
Yes, I'm here. Please confirm you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
All right. Okay, so for the announcements we have from the NAPE Secretariat, we just concluded this technical business meeting by the Awka Owerri chapter. The next announcements, we have the May technical meeting by the NAPE, which comes up by May 21st, 2025. The title is Optimizing OBM Seismic Surveys, Insights from Abami 4D Monitor 3D Acquisition, which will be delivered by Dr. Ayorinde Adekanle. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Okay, next slide. So the next one is by the NAPE North America chapter, which is they'll be presenting their May technical meeting on the 28th of May 2025 with the title Extending the Frontiers of Deepwater Exploration, and will be delivered by Professor Paul Mann as the guest speaker. Yes, next. Okay, so as part of the NAPE activities, they have this 2025 NAPE Research Granting Aid. I think the call for submission is ending today. Yeah, so we are encouraged, of course, mostly people from the academia are encouraged to put up their proposals, also people from the industry. So the call is ending today. That should be May 15th. So all the details are provided here. If you need further information, you can reach out to the NAPE Secretariat. Yes, next slide. Okay, of course, the NAPE Basin Evaluation Competition registration is ending tomorrow. So if your school have not registered yet, please reach out to your faculty advisor and ensure that your school registered to at least to participate in this year's Basin Evaluation Competition. Yes, next slide. NAPE election, of course, the election is going to be announced very soon. So please ensure that your membership is up to date for you to qualify to vote. Kindly update your membership record and also encourage others to join NAPE. Next. Yes, the most important activity for the year 2025, which is the NAPE International Conference, coming up on the 9th to 13th November 2025 at Echo Hotels and Suites. Call for abstract is still open. Ensure you submit an abstract. All right, so that is the conference flyer with the term Revitalizing the Nigerian Petroleum Exploration and Production Strategies for Energy Security and Sustainable Development. The registration is open, and the call for abstracts is also open. The deadlines are there. Reach out to your chapter coordinators for more information. Next. Okay, we are encouraged to pay up our membership dues. The details are there and the contact for inquiries. Please ensure that your students your members pay up their dues. Of course, to stand the chance to benefit from the many activities that have been organized by NAPE. Yes, NAPE turns 50 this year. So the 50 years celebration, the 50 years anniversary is going to take place on Thursday, 14th August 2025 at Eco Hotels and Suites. With the theme, Pioneering the Future of Energy in Africa. Please make out time to attend this event. Thank you. So that's it from the Secretariat. Thank you very much. George.
All right. Thank you, Chibuza Haniko, for those announcements. So, we would like to have the NAPE president-elect who died in earlier, Mrs. Olajumoke Cecilia Ajayi, for she to give us the vote of thanks of today's technical business meeting. Hello, ma. You have the floor now, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, ma.
All right.
I hear you, ma.
So, good afternoon, everyone. And this is to appreciate everyone who have made it to this presentation today virtually. And thank you for coming, all our fellows, our president, our ESCO members. Thank you for coming, and to Owerri chapter. Thank you for a very good topic. And then to our presenter, we appreciate. So our presenter, Dr. Obinna Chudi, thank you for coming and making an excellent presentation. I really enjoyed the paper. I think it's one that even those who have just been awarded deep water assets needs to listen to and listen to very well. And if possible, watch the YouTube video to have a good understanding of what you have done, so that they learn from that and not to put that into whatever, the knowledge into whatever they plan on doing. So thank you very much, our chairman. Thank you for how you've anchored the program, and even the question and answer session. It shows that people followed and they really understood what was presented. You know, in all, I just say well done and thank you very much. And we believe that both our presenter and our chairman, whenever we call upon you in future, you'll be willing to give us your time and also share knowledge with us as an association. God bless you all, and thank you very much for attending. Thank you.
Thank you, ma.
All right. Thank you, ma.
Thank you, ma. Thank you, P.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. We'd like to have some closing remarks. We'd also like to invite the Owerri chapter coordinator, Dr. Chunko, for him to give us one or two about the chapter and what we need to do henceforth.
Yeah. Thank you, George. Thank you, everyone. Graciously want to thank our president, John Bosco, for staying on call from the beginning till now. Then the PE, ma, we are really grateful to you, ma, and all the FNAPE presents and all the ESCOs. We are really grateful to every one of you. Then we must appreciate Tunde for always being there for us. Then we must also appreciate Madam PS. Sonia shall be so wonderful from the beginning to the end. We are really grateful to everyone that have participated. And to our presenter, Obinna, we are really grateful. We say thank you so much for giving us your time. We are grateful. All we are saying that God will keep enriching you from strength to strength in Jesus' name. Then to our chairman, Professor Norbert, thank you for being on call. Thank you for accepting to chair today's event. We are really grateful, sir. So please, it's not a skip. We have your own certificate as well. So we'll try and send it to you across, sir. We are really grateful. It is available. We'll provide it, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Then thank you to all the NAPE ESCO, all the Owerri chapter ESCOs. All of you are wonderful. Thank you for the cooperation. Thank you for the understanding. Thank you for everything. And to all the participants, this is a glorious participant. Over 136 on board. We are grateful. All we are saying is that we feel your presence today. We are so much grateful. Thank you, the moderator. George, you've done well. Keep it up. We need to see more of you on these aspects. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
All we are saying that just watch out for the next TBM that is coming up shortly within the July. It's going to be fascinating and excellent. You know, as we know, all we are trying to do is just to try to beef up the technical business meeting of the NAPI and try to meet all the goals and the objectives that is set for us. Thank you so much. Over to you, George. Thank you.
All right, thank you, our coordinator. And we are glad to have everyone on this call. We are glad to have the NAPE president, Mr. John Boskuche, who died in. We're also glad to have Mrs. Olujumoke Ajaye, the NAPE president-elect who died in, and all our fellows in the house. Thank you, everyone. We'd like to have thank you so much for dialing in, and wish to have more of you in our subsequent business meeting. Thank you all. God bless you all.
On these notes, we are ending this call. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Dalon, God bless all of you.
Bye.